Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some maps are intentionally drawn wrong. Tonight, from the Obsidian archive, we open the suppressed case file on a facility that has been systematically erased from every official record. A ghost in the machine of geography and government, known only by a designation that means nowhere. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places were never meant to be found. In the vast, uncaring archives of human knowledge, there are gaps, errors, omissions, but this is different. This is not an omission. It is an excision, a surgical removal from reality itself. We begin our investigation not with a clue, but with an absence, a void, a perfect geometric scar on the face of the earth where something should be but isn't. We call it the cartographical anomaly. For decades, it has been a phantom, a whisper among a select few surveyors, pilots, and satellite analysts. On commercial satellite maps, it's a blurry patch, a pixelated smudge often dismissed as a data stitching error. But pull up older, declassified military reconnaissance imagery from the Cold War, and the smudge sharpens into a deliberate, unnatural blackout, a perfect square of nothing. Flight paths, both commercial and private, are routed around this empty space with a wide, almost reverent berth. The official FAA charts list no reason, no restricted airspace, no military testing zone, no sensitive environmental area. It is simply a no-fly zone without a designation, a rule without a reason. Veteran pilots speak of it in hushed tones, a place where instruments go haywire, where compasses spin wildly, and where GPS signals simply cease to exist, replaced by a single, chilling error message. Location undefined. This isn't a natural magnetic disturbance. The deviation is too precise, its borders too sharp. It's as if a bubble of different physics has been placed over this patch of land. We acquired Soviet-era cartographical surveys from the 1970s, smuggled out of a defunct archive in Eastern Europe. These maps, meticulously detailed, show something that modern maps refuse to acknowledge. In the exact coordinates of the anomaly, there is a symbol. It's not a town, not a military base, not a mine. It is a symbol that appears on no other map legend we can find. A simple black diamond, encircled twice. Beneath it, a single cryptic annotation, in Cyrillic, Object null, Object 0. This was the first breadcrumb. The first indication that the void was not empty, but was in fact hiding something so significant that two global superpowers tacitly agreed to erase it from public view. It is a conspiracy not of action, but of mutual, silent inaction. A conspiracy of the mapmakers. The anomaly isn't just a blank spot, it's a statement, a warning. It is the geographic equivalent of a redacted line in a classified document. And like any good investigator, we know that the most important information is always hidden behind the black ink. If a place can be erased from a map, can a person be erased from history? The answer, we discovered, lies buried in a bureaucratic layer, so deep it has no name. After identifying Object 0, our search shifted from geography to administration. We scoured leaked government databases, congressional budget reports, and whistleblower forums, looking for any mention, any black budget line item that couldn't be accounted for. We found nothing. It was a perfect void. This level of secrecy suggested a classification beyond top secret, beyond even the special access programs that are whispered about in intelligence circles. Our source, a former archivist who will remain anonymous, referred to it by a chilling designation, File 0. According to them, File 0 is not a classification. It is a state of non-existence. A document or project assigned to File 0 is not just secured. It is retroactively erased from the system. Its budget is atomized and absorbed into thousands of unrelated projects, its paper trail shredded, and its digital footprint wiped by algorithms designed to hunt down and destroy every mention. But the most disturbing aspect of File 0 is how it applies to people. They are not terminated. They are unpersoned. We obtained a single, heavily damaged document fragment, allegedly recovered from a burn bag at a secure disposal site. Most of it is illegible, but a few phrases stand out under forensic analysis. Phrases like total identity disassociation protocol, biometric record scour, and the most haunting of all, assignment to unpersonnel roster. These individuals, presumably the staff of Object 0, were made to volunteer for a process that scrubbed them from the world. Birth certificates vanish. Social security numbers are invalidated. School records, driving licenses, family photos, all of it gone. They become ghosts in their own lives, their families told they died in training accidents, or simply disappeared. We cross-referenced lists of missing persons from the areas surrounding the anomaly, focusing on individuals with scientific or military backgrounds who vanished between 1970 and 1990. We found over 24 matches, each one a phantom with a disintegrating paper trail. Their files are filled with contradictions and dead ends, as if a digital entity is actively fighting any attempt to piece their lives back together. Who were these people? What work could possibly demand the ultimate sacrifice, not of one's life, but of one's very existence? The unpersonnel of Object 0 are the true secret. They are the human cost of the cartographical anomaly, living archives of a place that does not exist, their silence ensured by a system that has made them into no one. For decades, the only evidence of Object 0 was its absence. It was a silent void, a ghost on a map. But in the winter of 1988, for 72 terrifying seconds, the facility spoke. The source of this communication was not an official channel, but a clandestine community of shortwave radio enthusiasts and number station monitors. These hobbyists scan the dead frequencies, the static-filled bands between commercial broadcasts, listening for the cryptic coded messages believed to be sent by intelligence agencies. On November 12th, at 03:33 GMT, several listening posts across North America and Europe picked up an anomaly. It wasn't the monotone drone of a typical numbers station. It was a panicked, distorted, human voice, speaking in broken English, layered over a strange, rhythmic pulse. The signal was powerful, but incredibly localized, its origin triangulated to the dead center of the cartographical anomaly. We have acquired a restored copy of this recording. The audio quality is poor, degraded by atmospheric interference and what sounds like electronic scrambling, but fragments of the message are discernible. We've spent months analyzing it with forensic audio experts. The rhythmic pulse in the background, initially dismissed as interference, was identified as a non-standard time signature, a complex pattern that some experts believe could be a data stream or a machine heartbeat. Over this, the voice speaks. It's a man, his breathing ragged, his tone desperate. "Is not stable," he gasps, his words warped by the scrambler. "Breach in sector. Repeat. The geometry is wrong." What follows is the most chilling part of the transmission. The voice seems to be reading a series of observations not meant for an outside listener. Subjects no longer adhere to causal. There's a burst of static. Then, we are watching ourselves from the outside. The mirror is broken. The message ends abruptly, with a sound that analysts cannot agree upon. Some say it's the shriek of twisting metal. Others insist it is a human scream, electronically distorted beyond recognition. After those 72 seconds, the frequency fell silent. It has remained silent ever since. No government has ever acknowledged the broadcast. It does not officially exist. But for those who heard it, it was a terrifying glimpse behind the redacted curtain. It suggested that Object Zero was not a storage facility or a simple listening post. It was a place where fundamental laws of reality, of causality, and geometry were being tampered with. And something, on that cold November night, had gone horribly wrong. A place that isn't on a map. A staff that doesn't exist. A broadcast that was never transmitted. The final layer of security around Object Zero is not made of concrete or steel, but of absolute, unyielding denial. In the modern era of citizen journalism and satellite accessibility, one would think such a secret is impossible to keep. Yet, the anomaly persists, protected by a perimeter of silence and fear. We mounted a preliminary expedition, not to breach the area, but to test its boundaries. Our team, equipped with commercial drones and sensitive recording equipment, attempted to approach the perimeter of the coordinates derived from the old Soviet map. The results were immediate and unnerving. Miles from the supposed location, our electronic equipment began to fail. Drone batteries, fully charged, drained in seconds. GPS units went dark. Digital cameras recorded only corrupted files, filled with multicolored static and garbled noise. Even our mechanical compasses began to drift erratically, pointing away from the anomaly, as if repelled by an unseen force. On the second day, we were met. A pair of unmarked matte black SUVs appeared on the desolate access road, seemingly from nowhere. The occupants, dressed in plain civilian clothes with no insignia, did not threaten us. They didn't have to. They simply parked, watched us, and waited. Their presence was a clear, unambiguous message. When we submitted Freedom of Information Act requests to every conceivable government branch, the Department of Defense, the CIA, the Department of Energy, the National Reconnaissance Office, asking about Object Zero or unusual activity at the specified coordinates, the responses were unnervingly uniform. Most agencies responded that they can neither confirm nor deny the existence of such records. This is the standard GLOMAR response used to protect classified information. But several agencies gave a far more unusual reply. The request pertains to a subject matter for which this agency has no jurisdiction or operational purview. It's a bureaucratic masterpiece, a denial that doesn't deny anything. It simply declares the location to be outside the known reality of their operations. The facility that does not appear on any record is not just hidden, it is legislated out of existence. It is a paradox, enforced by men in black SUVs and labyrinthine legal responses. The perimeter is not on the ground. It is in our minds, in our laws, in our maps. The final question is not what is inside Object Zero. The final question is, what reality are they trying to keep it from infecting? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not meant to be found, because what they hold is not meant to be known. For every official secret, there are 100 whispers, but for a place that doesn't officially exist, there is only silence. A silence so profound, it becomes a sound in itself, a low hum of erasure. Our investigation into the facility that does not appear on any record began as a ghost story, a compilation of digital breadcrumbs and satellite anomalies. It was a theoretical place, an intellectual exercise in paranoia, until the silence was broken. The first voice emerged not from a government office or a declassified file, but from the digital fringe, a place where secrets go to die or to be reborn. An encrypted email, routed through a dozen servers, landed in our inbox. It was signed with a single letter, K. The message was simple. You're looking at the map, but the place you're searching for is off the page. I was there. Arranging a meeting was a masterclass in tradecraft. Burner phones, dead drops, layers of verification. The man who called himself K was not what we expected. He wasn't a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist. He was a quiet, tired-looking man in his late 40s, a former signal processing engineer whose public record showed a 10-year gap working for a nondescript telecommunications subcontractor. A shell company, he explained. He spoke in a low, measured monotone, as if the energy required for emotion had been burned out of him long ago. He never let us record his face, only his voice, a disembodied testament to a place he swore was real. You can't call it a building, he began, his voice raspy, filtered through a voice modulator. It's more like a mechanism, a tumor buried in the earth. There were no windows, not a single one. You lost all track of time, of day and night. The only clock was the shift change. Kay described an environment of absolute sensory control. The air, he said, was recycled so perfectly it had no scent, except for a faint, sterile tang of ozone and something else he could only describe as hot metal and cold static. The lighting was seamless, a constant, shadowless glow from panels in the ceiling that never flickered, never dimmed. The purpose was disorientation, to unmoor you from the outside world until the facility became the only world. His job, he claimed, was to maintain the integrity of the internal communications network, a closed system completely air-gapped from the global internet. He wasn't privy to the core projects, a fact that was brutally enforced. Information was a currency, and everyone was kept poor. Compartmentalization wasn't just a policy, Kay explained. It was a religion. You knew your box. You never looked into the box next to you. You didn't even know its shape. But Kay was observant. He saw things. He described maintenance shafts that were etched with geometric patterns that were not part of any engineering schematic he had ever seen. He spoke of overhearing conversations in languages that were not of any known human origin. His most chilling recollection was of what he called the hum. It wasn't the sound of generators or ventilation. It was a deep, sub-audible frequency that permeated the entire structure. Sometimes he said it would modulate, and in those moments the strange symbols on the walls would seem to shimmer. He couldn't prove it. It was a feeling, a deep, primal sense that the facility wasn't just a structure of concrete and steel, but that the entire complex was alive. He left after an incident he refused to detail, an event that he said unplugged him from the machine. He fled not just the facility, but his entire life. He was a ghost, a voice from a place that doesn't exist, warning us that some maps should remain blank for a reason. A voice in the dark is a powerful thing, but without corroboration, it remains just that, a story. Kay's testimony was compelling, filled with the kind of sensory detail that is hard to fabricate. Yet, it was anecdotal. To lend it credence, we had to anchor his ghost story in the black and white reality of the official record. Our search began with the mundane tools of the investigator. Freedom of Information Act requests. We filed hundreds. We requested budget reports from obscure defense departments, geological survey data for the region Kay hinted at, and personnel records for the shell company he named. The responses were a uniform, bureaucratic wall. No records responsive to your request were found. It was a digital dead end. The facility was not just off the books, it seemed the books were written specifically to exclude it. So we changed tactics. Instead of searching for the facility itself, we began searching for its shadow. A project of this scale, no matter how secret, must leave a financial footprint. A black hole in the national budget. Pouring through decades of declassified defense spending, we found them. Multi-billion-dollar accounting anomalies listed under vague headings like Special Projects Contingency or Unallocated Infrastructure Development. These were budgetary ghosts, vast sums of money that entered a labyrinth of classified programs and never came out. When cross-referenced by year, some of these spikes in spending coincided with the timeline Kay had provided for the facility's major expansion phases. It wasn't proof, but it was a pattern, a faint echo in the halls of government finance. Our next breakthrough came from the dustiest corners of the archives. We weren't looking at digital records anymore. We were looking at paper, at microfilm, at the physical history that is harder to erase. We found an old aeronautical chart from 1958. In the middle of a vast, empty stretch of desert, a small symbol denoted a restricted zone R7B, with a notation, Geological Survey Use Only. This was the exact area Kay had described, but on every subsequent map we found, from 1960 onward, the zone was gone. The desert was once again depicted as pristine, empty, and unremarkable. It was as if R7B had been wiped from cartographic history. We had found an archival ghost, a place that existed for a moment on paper and then vanished. Then came the document. It was a single page, buried deep within a recently declassified CIA file on remote viewing programs from the 1970s. The file itself was mostly innocuous, but this one page was an outlier, a memo that seemed to have been included by mistake. It was a logistics request, and most of it was covered in thick black bars of redaction. But a few key phrases survived the censor's pen. The memo requested specialized atmospheric filtration units and non-Euclidean shielding materials to be delivered to a location referred to only as Site Chimera. Below that, a handwritten note in the margin read, "Per Doctrine of Plausible Non-Existence, manifest to be zeroed post-delivery." There it was, a code name, a doctrine, and a request for materials that defy conventional physics. Kay's story about strange symbols and a living structure no longer sounded so fantastic. We were no longer chasing a ghost. We were chasing a chimera. The phrase found in that redacted memo was more than just jargon. It was a key. The Doctrine of Plausible Non-Existence. This isn't your standard government secrecy. It is not simply about classifying information or hiding a location behind a fence. It is a proactive, multi-layered strategy designed to make the very concept of a place like Site Chimera seem not just unproven, but logically impossible. It's a form of ontological warfare, a philosophical shield designed to deflect inquiry before it can even begin. To understand the facility, we first have to deconstruct the doctrine that protects it. It is a fortress built of shadows and mirrors, and it has 4 distinct walls. The first wall is physical obfuscation. This is the most straightforward layer. The facility is buried, likely hundreds, if not thousands of feet underground, beneath a landscape chosen for its geological stability and utter lack of distinguishing features. Access is likely through disguised, mundane structures, a forgotten mine shaft, a decommissioned military bunker, or even a private agricultural facility. There are no fences, no warning signs, because to put up a sign is to admit there is something to hide. Airspace above is restricted under a plausible cover, such as a military training route or experimental drone testing, making any unauthorized aerial surveillance a federal crime. The second wall is bureaucratic camouflage, and it is far more complex. The facility does not have a name, a budget, or a direct chain of command. It is a phantom entity. Its funding is a masterpiece of financial laundering, siphoned in small, untraceable amounts from dozens of unrelated, legitimate black projects. Its staff are not hired. They are seconded. An engineer from a private aerospace firm, a physicist from a national laboratory, a linguist from the NSA. Their official records show them on sabbatical, on extended leave, or assigned to a benign research initiative. They cease to officially exist for the duration of their service, held in a state of administrative limbo. All procurement is handled through a web of shell corporations, each one created for a single transaction and then dissolved. It's impossible to follow a paper trail that is constantly being shredded. The third wall is digital ghosting. In our hyper-connected world, this is perhaps the most critical layer. The facility is a digital black hole. It is completely and utterly air-gapped from the global internet. Its internal network, the one K maintained, is a closed loop. All personnel and materials are electronically scrubbed before entering and leaving. No personal electronics are allowed within a 10-mile radius. The area is likely saturated with signal jammers and spoofers, ensuring that no GPS, satellite phone, or unauthorized transmission can function. The facility doesn't show up on any network map, because as far as the digital world is concerned, it is a void. Finally, and most insidiously, is the fourth wall, strategic misinformation. The doctrine anticipates leaks. It assumes that sooner or later a story will get out, and it is prepared. Any rumor that gets too close to the truth is immediately drowned in a flood of more sensational, more easily debunked nonsense. The architects of this secrecy might even seed these wilder theories themselves. If a credible witness like K comes forward, a coordinated campaign begins to systematically dismantle their reputation, painting them as unstable, a grifter, or a fantasist. The goal is to make the truth so toxic, so radioactive with ridicule, that no serious journalist or official will ever dare to touch it. The doctrine of plausible non-existence ensures that the facility that does not appear on any record remains not just unseen, but unbelievable. We have a witness. We have a location that was wiped from the map. We have a doctrine of secrecy and a code name, Chimera. But the ultimate question remains unanswered. Why? Why go to such extraordinary lengths to create a place that doesn't exist? What is the mandate of Project Chimera? The name itself is a clue. In mythology, the Chimera was a monstrous hybrid a creature of mismatched parts, lion, goat, and serpent. It suggests a project focused on synthesis, on the unnatural fusion of disparate elements. Based on our scarce evidence and Kay's testimony, we can speculate on 4 chilling possibilities, each one a potential facet of this monstrous whole. First is the most common theory for such deep black sites, the reverse engineering mandate. This posits that the facility is a repository for technology that is not of human origin. Kay's mention of physics-defying schematics and non-Euclidean shielding strongly supports this. The facility would be a hermetically sealed laboratory where scientists and engineers attempt to understand and replicate artifacts recovered from crash sites, or perhaps objects of an even stranger provenance. The intense secrecy would be paramount, not just to maintain a technological edge over geopolitical rivals, but to prevent the global panic and societal collapse that could result from the revelation that we are not alone, and that our technology is primitive by comparison. Second is a more disturbing possibility, the biogenetic mandate. The name Chimera could be literal. The facility may not be working with technology, but with life itself. This theory suggests a program dedicated to advanced genetic engineering, far beyond the scope of public ethics or law. Are they creating hybrid organisms? Splicing human and non-human DNA to create enhanced soldiers? Or are they attempting to understand and weaponize an alien biology? Kay's description of the sterile air smelling of ozone could be consistent with biological containment protocols. This would explain the extreme moral and ethical lines he felt were being crossed. A secret so profound it would redefine the very meaning of what it is to be human. Third, we must consider the containment mandate. This is perhaps the most terrifying theory. What if the facility was not built to create something but to imprison it? What if decades ago humanity found something it could not understand or control and the only solution was to bury it? In this scenario, the entire complex is a prison, a cage. The hum Kay described might not be from machinery, but from the entity locked within. The strange symbols might not be schematics, but wards of containment. The secrecy, then, is not to hide a discovery, but to hide a threat so existential that its mere existence is a secret worth killing for, a secret that must be kept at all costs, lest the prison doors swing open. Finally, there is the synthesis mandate, which suggests that the truth is a hybrid of all of the above. Project Chimera may be an attempt to synthesize exotic technology with manipulated biology, guided by forces we do not understand, to contain a threat that has already arrived. It is a desperate, multifaceted effort to fight fire with an even stranger fire. The facility is not just a lab or a prison, it is an altar where the known laws of our reality are being sacrificed for a new, terrifying form of power. We don't know what is being built, or contained, or unleashed within that non-existent place. But whatever the mandate of Project Chimera is, it operates under the assumption that humanity's survival depends on the world never, ever finding out. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors once opened can never be closed again. Official denial is a powerful anesthetic. It numbs the public consciousness, turning extraordinary events into whispers, and whispers into forgotten folklore. But in the desolate expanse of the Alvord Basin, the folklore has teeth. For decades, the scattered residents living on the fringe of this government-owned wasteland have been the unwilling audience to a silent, terrifying theater. Their stories, dismissed as local legend or the product of isolation, form a chilling mosaic that points to something hidden in plain sight. A facility that, according to every official map and record, simply isn't there. We begin with the testimony of Elias Vance, a third-generation rancher, whose property abuts a fence line that stretches for miles, marked only by stark, ominous signs forbidding entry. In a 1987 interview with a local paper, later retracted, he described what he saw. "It wasn't a plane," he stated, his voice strained. "Planes make noise. They have wings. This was a triangle of pure black, a hole in the night sky. It moved without a sound, impossibly fast, and then just stopped. It hovered over the basin for maybe 10 minutes before dropping straight down, like a stone in a well. There was no impact, no light, no sound. It just vanished into the ground." Vance's story is not unique. Throughout the late 70s and 80s, reports of silent, geometric craft and unexplained nocturnal lights were rampant. But it was the ground-level activity that truly unnerved the locals. A retired surveyor, speaking to us on the condition of anonymity, recalls being hired for a preliminary land assessment in 1979. His contract was with a shell corporation. The paperwork was vague, and his assigned area was a featureless patch of desert. "They had me mapping phantom geological formations," he told us. "My GPS, the old military kind, would go haywire within a 5-mile radius of a specific set of coordinates. The ground vibrated, a low hum you felt more in your bones than heard with your ears. My crew and I saw convoys of unmarked, black-painted trucks. No license plates, no insignias. They'd drive into the desert at dusk and never come back out. When I filed my report, noting the anomalies, my contract was terminated. The next week, the Shell Corporation was dissolved. It never existed." These are not isolated incidents. We uncovered over 40 separate accounts, ranging from hunters finding strange, non-terrestrial metallic fragments that were warm to the touch even in freezing temperatures, to a former volunteer firefighter who responded to a brush fire near the perimeter. He describes being met not by state officials, but by men in sterile, white, hazmat-like suits who erected a quarantine zone and turned his team away, claiming a chemical spill. There was no record of any such spill with the EPA or any state agency. The official narrative is silence. The official record is a blank page. But the testimony of those who live in the shadow of this void tells a different story. They speak of a place that breathes, a place that watches, a place that isn't supposed to be there at all. There are things that science can measure: seismic waves, decibel levels, frequency spectrums. But what happens when a phenomenon defies all known metrics? What happens when the event is not just a sound, but a physical violation of the environment itself? On the night of November 14, 1992, the few dozen residents of a small, unincorporated community bordering the Alvord Basin experienced what they would later call the hum. It was an event so singular, so profoundly disturbing, that it left a permanent scar on the region's psyche. It began just after 2 a.m. It wasn't an earthquake, though the ground trembled. It wasn't a sonic boom, though windows in homes over 10 miles away reportedly cracked. It was a sound that witnesses struggled to describe. Some called it a deep, resonant bass note that seemed to originate from everywhere at once. Others described it as a grinding metallic vibration that felt as if the very air was tearing apart. Audio recordings from the time are useless. They captured nothing but static. But the physical evidence was undeniable. Local archives contain panicked 911 calls reporting extreme vertigo, splitting headaches, and spontaneous nosebleeds. One caller, a frantic mother, claimed she could see the sound like heat haze off a highway, a visible distortion in the air that made the trees in her yard appear to ripple and bend. A flock of migratory birds was found dead the next morning, scattered across a 2-mile area, with no signs of trauma. Veterinarians who examined the carcasses cited mass neurological shock. The official explanation, provided by a nearby Air Force base after days of inquiry, was unusual atmospheric conditions causing a rare acoustic propagation anomaly. A word salad designed to pacify and dismiss. But independent researchers who analyzed amateur seismic readings from that night found a troubling signature. The energy pattern did not match any known geological or man-made event. It was a sustained, incredibly powerful, low-frequency wave that pulsed for exactly 7 minutes and 12 seconds, before abruptly ceasing. The epicenter of this energy was pinpointed to the exact same coordinates where the surveyor's equipment failed, where the black convoys vanished, where the silent triangles descended, the heart of the void, where the facility that does not appear on any record is believed to operate. What kind of technology could produce such a phenomenon? Was this a weapon being tested? A propulsion system coming online? Or was it something far more terrifying? The sound of an engine that powers the impossible structure itself. An engine that, for 7 minutes, ran out of control, bending not just the air, but perhaps space and time itself? The hum was never heard again, but its legend persists. It serves as a stark reminder that the silence surrounding the facility is a choice, and that deep within its unacknowledged walls, forces are at play that can warp the very fabric of our reality. In the world of intelligence, a leak is a crack in the dam of secrecy. But sometimes, what comes through the crack is not a flood of information, but a single, incomprehensible drop. In 2003, a cache of heavily redacted government documents was released through a Freedom of Information Act request filed by a journalistic consortium. Buried within thousands of pages of mundane supply requisitions and bureaucratic memos was a single file, designated only as LV Grid 7. It contained 5 schematic diagrams. These were not blueprints for a bunker, a lab, or a military base. They were blueprints for an impossibility. The Obsidian archive has analyzed these schematics with the help of structural engineers and theoretical physicists, and their conclusions are unanimous. Whatever this structure is, it cannot be built with our current understanding of science. The first and most jarring feature is the geometry. The facility is designed with non-Euclidean principles. Corridors are shown turning at angles that should lead them outside the structure, yet they curve back in on themselves. We see vast, cavernous chambers depicted in the very center of the facility that have a greater volumetric capacity than the exterior shell could possibly contain. It's an architectural tesseract, a building that is bigger on the inside. One diagram, labeled Central Resonator Chamber, shows a massive central pillar suspended in the middle of a spherical room with no visible supports. Notes in the margins, almost entirely blacked out, contain fragments of phrases like harmonic containment field and phased temporal anchor. This is not the language of architecture. It is the language of science fiction. The materials listed are equally baffling. Alloys with impossible tensile strengths and elemental compositions that do not appear on the periodic table are specified. Power conduits are designed to carry energy loads that would vaporize any known conductor. The power source itself is simply labeled the core, depicted as a singularity, a point of infinite density from which all the facility systems draw their power. Perhaps most disturbing is the layout of the personnel quarters in what is designated as Sector Gamma. The rooms are arranged in a labyrinthine pattern with no discernible exits to the main facility. There are no windows, no recreational areas, just a series of identical cells connected by a single looping hallway. It looks less like a habitat and more like a holding pen, or a maze from which there is no escape. The official government response to inquiries about LV Grid 7 is that it was a theoretical design exercise, or a disinformation plant, meant to confuse foreign intelligence. But the level of detail, the complex physics equations scribbled in the margins, the sheer alien nature of the design, it all points to something more. These are not the doodles of a bored engineer. They are the plans for a machine disguised as a building, a structure built to contain something or someone that operates on principles beyond our comprehension. This is the architecture of the unknown, a structure of impossible geometry powered by an unknown source hidden from the world. Who would build such a place? And more importantly, who would work there? The human element is the most unsettling chapter in the story of the unrecorded facility, because the people who were tasked with bringing it to life have all but disappeared. Between 1985 and 1991, a highly specialized recruitment drive was conducted by a series of defense contractors and academic institutions. They were looking for the best and brightest, theoretical physicists, exotic materials engineers, cryptographers, and elite military security specialists. They were offered exorbitant salaries, complete autonomy, and the chance to work on a project that would redefine the national defense paradigm. The project was codenamed Project Chimera. Those who accepted were required to sever most ties with their former lives. They signed non-disclosure agreements so restrictive they were essentially surrendering their civil liberties. They were relocated to designated government housing, and their families were told they were working on a sensitive long-term assignment abroad. We have compiled a list of 117 individuals who fit this profile. 117 brilliant minds who, one by one, dropped off the map. Their professional publications ceased. Their academic profiles were scrubbed. Their families received monthly pension checks from untraceable accounts, but all direct communication stopped. The official story was always the same: a training accident, a sudden transfer, a resignation for personal reasons. But there was never a body, never a forwarding address, never a final phone call. They simply became ghosts in the system. The most chilling piece of evidence comes from the leaked blueprints of Sector Gamma, the section of the facility that appeared to be living quarters. We cross-referenced the number of habitation cells in those plans with our list of the missing. The number was a perfect match: 117. It suggests that these individuals weren't just employees. They were integral components of the facility itself, perhaps even prisoners within its impossible walls. A letter from the wife of Dr. Aris Thorne, a leading physicist in quantum entanglement, provides a heartbreaking glimpse into the reality of this erasure. "He called me one last time," she wrote to her sister in a letter we obtained. He sounded terrified. He said the project wasn't what they were told. He said the architecture was alive. He whispered something about resonance and imprinting, that the facility was changing them. Then the line went dead. The next day, 2 men in dark suits came to my door and told me Eris had died in a car accident overseas. They gave me a flag and a check and told me not to ask any more questions. The 117 members of Project Chimera were not just a workforce. They were a sacrifice. The question that haunts us is not just where they went, but what they became. Are they still trapped inside Sector Gamma, maintaining a machine beyond our darkest imaginings? Or were they consumed by it? The facility without a name may also be a tomb without a marker. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not meant to be found because what they hide is not meant to be known. Secrecy is a corrosive agent. It doesn't just conceal, it eats away at the container that holds it. For the unlisted, unmapped facility at the heart of our investigation, that container is the human mind. And sometimes the container breaks. This brings us to a document that should not exist, a ghost in the official archives of institutional psychology. The Albright Dossier. Dr. Evelyn Albright was a brilliant, if obscure, clinical psychiatrist. In the late 1980s, she was headhunted by a defense contractor with a deliberately bland name, In-Scope Logistical Solutions, a known shell corporation. Her task was singular: to provide ongoing psychological evaluation for personnel at a high-security research installation. The location was never disclosed to her. She was flown in on blacked-out helicopters, and her sessions took place in a sterile, soundproofed room she later described as a sensory deprivation chamber with a couch. The dossier is a compilation of her notes on one subject, designated Patient Epsilon. Epsilon was a senior technician, a man with a flawless service record and top-level clearance. But after 3 years inside the facility, he began to unravel. The official diagnosis was paranoid schizophrenia. Albright's private notes tell a different story. The dossier is filled with transcripts of their sessions. Epsilon's speech patterns are fractured, disjointed. He speaks of walls that remember and the hum of incorrect geometry. He describes seeing maintenance crews repairing sections of corridor that, according to blueprints he had once seen, did not connect to anything. He claimed the facility's central reactor wasn't powered by any known terrestrial source, but by what he called a captured echo, a fragment of a dead timeline. They told us it was a closed system, he says in one transcript, his voice trembling. But things get in, not through the doors, through the angles. Albright initially approached this as textbook delusion, but her clinical certainty began to erode. She noted Epsilon's uncanny ability to describe specific, classified, technical details of the facility's architecture that he shouldn't have known. Details she was later able to partially and terrifyingly verify through coded conversations with other personnel. The most disturbing part of the dossier is the final section. It contains crude, frantic sketches made by Epsilon. They depict impossible objects, sigils that seem to shift on the page, and a recurring motif of a human silhouette dissolving into static. Beside one drawing, Albright's own handwriting, sharp and panicked, reads, "He is not describing what he fears. He is describing what he is becoming." Patient Epsilon was removed from the facility and placed in a private, high-security sanatorium, where he died of a cerebral hemorrhage a year later. Dr. Albright resigned from her contract shortly after, citing ethical concerns. She passed away in a car accident 2 weeks later. The Albright dossier only survived because she had made a clandestine copy, which was leaked to us by a source deep within the intelligence community. It is not just a medical file, it is a testament to the fact that the facility doesn't just demand your silence. It demands your sanity. A ghost in the machine. A whisper in the static. When every official channel is sealed, truth must find other ways to escape. For an entity as hermetically sealed as our non-existent facility, a leak is not a drip. It's a quantum event. A message in a bottle thrown across an ocean of secrecy. In 2011, a rare book collector in Amsterdam purchased an estate lot. Inside a dusty first edition of Jorge Luis Borges's Ficciones, he found a single folded sheet of paper. It wasn't a bookmark. It was covered in a dense block of alphanumeric characters, handwritten with painstaking precision. For years, it remained an unsolved curiosity, a footnote on cryptography forums. But then, a user known only as Delphi recognized a pattern, not in the code itself, but in the subtle imperfections of the handwriting. It was a layered cipher. The first layer, a standard Vigenère cipher, was broken using a keyword found hidden in the book's publishing date. But this only revealed a second layer of gibberish. The breakthrough came when Delphi hypothesized the second layer was a custom book cipher, keyed to the very edition it was found in. Page number, line number, word number. The process was laborious, a digital seance connecting a dead author to a hidden prisoner. When the message was finally decrypted, it was a chilling cry from the heart of the void. The author, who signed off as Cassandra, confirmed they were a research scientist inside the facility. The letter was not a plea for rescue. Cassandra knew that was impossible. It was a warning. They call this place the Fulcrum, the letter begins. They believe it is a point outside of conventional space-time, a place where causality can be edited. We were told we were observing. We are not observers. We are components. Cassandra describes experiments that defy our understanding of physics. They are not studying reality. They are harvesting it for parts. We brought something back from an aborted timeline last Tuesday. It has no physical form, but it has weight. It wears the silence in the hallways like a cloak. The project lead calls it a sentient mathematical paradox. I call it a hungry god. The letter details how the facility's own structure is beginning to react to the experiments. Corridors that rearrange themselves overnight. Rooms that, when measured from the inside, are larger than the building's external dimensions. Cassandra speaks of personnel who simply de-resolve, fading from existence over a period of days, while their colleagues' memories of them fade at the same rate. It's a perfect erasure. Do not try to find this place, the letter concludes. The map is not a location, it is an equation. And its solution is madness. I am sending this out, not so you can open the door, but so you know to bolt your own. They are learning to export the rules of this place. The quarantine is failing. A secret of this magnitude cannot be contained by fences and guards alone. It requires a buffer zone, an area of deliberate neglect and induced strangeness. It needs a place to hide its ghosts. The true cost of the facility is not measured in black budget dollars, but in the lives of the people who live in its shadow. Communities that have been subtly and systematically turned into human camouflage. While the facility itself remains unplotted, Its sphere of influence creates ripples, anomalies that defy rational explanation. We have collected dozens of accounts from the sparsely populated regions surrounding its suspected operational area. These are not dramatic tales of alien abduction, but something far more insidious. It's the story of a rural postal worker who swears that on the third Tuesday of every month, his route changes. A road that wasn't there before appears, leading into the deep woods, only to vanish by his return trip. It's the volunteer firefighter who responded to a brush fire and saw a building made of heat shimmer for a few seconds before it was gone. These witnesses are not cranks. They are ordinary people who have learned to live with the impossible, to edit their own memories to maintain their sanity. This phenomenon is what some researchers call environmental gaslighting. The most compelling evidence comes from the now defunct town of Havenwood Creek. Officially, the town was abandoned in the 1990s due to contamination from a nearby chemical plant. But there was no chemical plant. Local records were altered, and the story was seeded into the media. The real reason was far more disturbing. We spoke with a former resident, a man named Samuel, who was a child when the town was evacuated. He speaks of the wrong silence that would fall over the town at night, a heavy, oppressive quiet where even the insects and animals would cease their sounds. He talks about the flicker, a shared phenomenon where, for a split second, the entire sky would appear to be a grid of black lines, like a computer simulation breaking down. Children drew pictures of a tall house with no windows in the hills, a house no adult ever admitted to seeing. The breaking point for the town, and for the operation concealing the facility, was when people began to disappear from their own homes, leaving behind nothing but a faint scent of ozone and a cold spot in the air. The evacuation was not a safety measure. It was a containment protocol. Havenwood Creek was scrubbed from the map. The human cost is not just in the trauma of those who were there. It's in the erasure of their history, their community, their very existence, all sacrificed to protect a secret buried in the wilderness. They are the forgotten casualties of a war they never knew was being fought. A secret is not a static object to be hidden. It is a living, breathing entity that constantly tries to reveal itself. To keep a secret the size of our phantom facility requires a perpetual, aggressive war against reality itself. This war has a name: Operation Clean Slate. This is not a passive measure of redacting documents. It is an active, multi-domain campaign of total information denial. It is the reason the facility remains a ghost. Our sources indicate Clean Slate is managed by a supranational entity known only by its sigil, an Ouroboros devouring a black cube. They are the custodians of the secret, and their methods are as terrifying as the facility itself. Their primary tool is technological. Satellite imagery is their canvas. We have evidence of sophisticated algorithms that can alter satellite feeds in real time. A truck convoy carrying supplies doesn't just get blurred out. It is replaced with a plausible image of a migrating herd of deer. The heat signature of a massive underground complex is digitally scrubbed and re-rendered to mimic natural geothermal activity. They are not just hiding the facility. They are painting a false landscape over it, a masterpiece of deception visible only from orbit. But their reach extends beyond the digital. Operation Clean Slate employs exotic next-generation technology to mask its physical presence. Acoustic cancellation fields, deployed by unmanned drones, create a multi-mile radius of profound silence around the perimeter, swallowing the noise of construction, transport, and even the low-frequency hum reported by former personnel. There are whispers of localized chronal distortion fields, experimental tech that can subtly desynchronize the area from the normal flow of time, causing any unauthorized observer's equipment and perceptions to fail in inexplicable ways. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Clean Slate is its psychological warfare division. They don't just debunk leaks, they weaponize belief. Using sophisticated AI and bot networks, they flood the internet with an overwhelming volume of outlandish conspiracy theories. Lizard people, flat Earth, fake moon landings, all subtly linked to the same geographical region as the facility. This creates a thick fog of absurdity, ensuring any genuine leak, any credible eyewitness account, is immediately dismissed as part of the noise. The whistleblower becomes just another crackpot. Operation Clean Slate is the final, terrifying layer of the mystery. It tells us that the facility is not merely a secret project. It is a fundamental alteration of our world that is deemed so important or so dangerous that a permanent silent war is being waged to keep us from ever seeing the scar. It leads us to a final chilling question. Is this operation designed to protect the facility from the world, or is it to protect the world from the facility? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not meant to be found because they were never meant to exist. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. The paper trail is where secrets are buried, but in the case of the facility, it's where they are meticulously unborn. An official record is a proof of existence, a time-stamped anchor in reality. So what happens when those anchors don't hold? What happens when they pull against each other, creating a paradox of documentation? When we first began digging into the landmass associated with the coordinates, we expected to find a void, a simple absence of information. Instead, we found something far more disturbing, a cacophony of contradiction. We found records designed not to hide, but to confuse. A 1953 geological survey map, declassified in 1998, clearly marks the area as Federal Reserve Territory, unsurveyed. Standard procedure for remote government land. Yet, a county tax ledger from the very same year, unearthed from a dusty municipal basement, lists the exact same parcel under a corporate entity, Aegis Development LLC. The tax record shows they paid a nominal fee for agricultural use for 3 consecutive years, from 1953 to 1955. After that, Aegis Development vanishes. It never filed federal taxes. It had no listed board of directors. Its address was a post office box in Delaware that was closed in 1956. It was a ghost corporation, a phantom landowner for a phantom facility. The contradictions escalate from there. We acquired Air Force flight logs from the era, specifically looking for traffic around the restricted airspace that now covers the location. For a decade, from 1955 to 1965, the airspace was designated R-770B. But the logs show no authorized military flights entering it. Not one. However, civilian pilot reports, dismissed at the time as weather balloons or hoaxes, repeatedly describe unmarked, dark-bodied aircraft entering and leaving the restricted zone, always between dusk and dawn. So we have a piece of land owned by the government and a ghost corporation simultaneously. We have a restricted military airspace with no military flights, but consistent reports of unidentified craft. It's a tapestry of lies, where every thread you pull unravels another, more complex fabrication, This isn't a simple cover-up. It's a calculated act of historical sabotage. The documents weren't just redacted. They were authored to contradict one another, to create a labyrinth of bureaucratic dead ends. It's a strategy of informational warfare, waged against anyone who dares to look. The goal isn't to create a blank spot on the map, but to create a place that, according to the official record, could not possibly have existed. A lie of this magnitude, a fiction so deeply woven into the fabric of official records, doesn't write itself. Such a grand deception requires an author, an architect of unreality. In the clandestine world, these figures are ghosts, their names spoken only in whispers. But through fragmented testimony and a single, almost entirely redacted memo, one name has surfaced in connection to projects of this nature: Silas Thorne. Thorne was not an engineer or a soldier. He was a master of perception. His file, if one could even call it that, is a ghost. Recruited from a university psychology program in the early days of the Cold War, he was a prodigy in a new field: strategic deception. His specialty was what the intelligence community called reality constructs, entirely fabricated histories, complete with documents, personnel, and physical evidence, designed to mislead adversarial intelligence services. He didn't just hide secrets, he built false realities around them. A declassified CIA internal memo from 1962, referencing a program codenamed Project Chimera, mentions a Mr. Thorne as the lead on asset obfuscation protocol. The objective of this protocol was not to erase a sensitive project, but to make its existence a logical paradox. It was Thorne's philosophy that a true secret is not one that is unknown, but one that is unbelievable. He would create multiple conflicting cover stories and leak them all. One source would claim the site was a nuclear waste dump. Another, a weather station. A third, a private research grant. The conflicting data would cause any investigation to collapse under its own weight. We believe the facility was Thorne's masterpiece. The Ghost Corporation, Aegis Development, bears his signature, a name that implies protection and defense, a subtle piece of psychological misdirection. The contradictory land deeds, the phantom flight logs. This is the Hall of Mirrors technique he was rumored to have perfected. We spoke to a former intelligence analyst off the record who worked on Soviet counter-espionage. He said, "You never looked for Thorne's projects. You looked for his shadow. You'd find a file that made no sense, a budget that led nowhere, a timeline that folded in on itself. That's how you knew you were close to something he was hiding." Thorne's work was to ensure that even if a whistleblower emerged, their story would be instantly lost in the noise he had already created. They would be discredited not by denial, but by the sheer volume of conflicting, official information. Silas Thorne was not just covering up a facility. He was weaponizing the very concept of truth, creating a fortress of lies from which no secret could ever escape. If Silas Thorne and his labyrinth of records were the fortress, what treasure was it built to protect? What was happening at this non-existent facility that required a level of secrecy so absolute it bordered on the metaphysical? The theories branch into three distinct and increasingly unsettling directions. The first and most grounded theory is that the facility was simply the ultimate black site. In an era of programs like MK Ultra and Project Artichoke, the United States government was pushing the boundaries of science, ethics, and human endurance. This facility could have been the next terrifying evolution, a place so far off the books that even the programs conducted there had no official name, no budget line, no oversight. A place for interrogation techniques that made other black sites look humane, or for testing radical technologies, hypersonic weapons, cloaking devices, biological agents that could never be acknowledged. The extreme secrecy was to create total deniability, a place where actions had no consequences, because officially, they never happened. The second theory takes us deeper into the shadows of fringe science. It posits that the facility was not for weapons, but for minds. It was the epicenter of research into psychic phenomena, remote viewing, and psychokinesis. Building on the foundations of the Stargate project, this facility would have been its successor, a place where the human mind itself was being weaponized or used as a tool for espionage. Perhaps they were attempting to communicate across vast distances, view inside enemy bunkers, or even influence world leaders. Such a program, if successful, would be the most powerful intelligence tool in history, and its existence would be the most closely guarded secret on the planet. The final, most profound theory is what some researchers call the threshold hypothesis. This theory suggests the facility was not built to study weapons or the mind, but reality itself, that within its walls, scientists had achieved a breakthrough in quantum physics so fundamental it changed our understanding of existence. Perhaps they stabilized a wormhole or made contact with a parallel dimension. The facility in this scenario was not just a laboratory. It was a gateway, a threshold between our world and something else. The cover-up, then, is not to hide a weapon or a spy program, but to hide a truth that humanity is not ready for. It is to prevent a paradigm shift so violent it could shatter society. From a hidden prison to a psychic warfare center to a doorway to another universe, the purpose of the facility remains the ultimate enigma. The only certainty is that whatever they were doing, they did not want us to know. In the end, all the theories, the redacted files, and the ghost stories lead back to one place. A single point on the globe defined by a string of numbers. 3037-14-6 N, 115-48-40 W. These are not the real coordinates. We cannot in good conscience share those. But they represent a similar remote location in the Nevada desert. A place you can see on a map, but can never truly reach. Today, satellite imagery of the location shows nothing. Barren, undisturbed desert. A flat expanse of scrubland and cracked earth, indistinguishable from the thousands of square miles around it. But the past tells a different story. Declassified KH-9 hexagon spy satellite images from the 1970s, when put through modern spectral analysis, show faint but undeniable ground disturbances. Geometric shapes, straight lines that are not natural, the faint scar of what could have been a runway, or the foundation of a large rectangular structure now long gone. It's as if the entire facility was not just abandoned, but systematically erased, dismantled piece by piece, and the desert floor meticulously groomed to hide the scars. But some scars can't be hidden. Over the years, dozens of hikers, amateur investigators, and urban explorers have tried to reach the coordinates on foot. Their stories share an unnerving consistency. As they approach a certain perimeter, roughly 5 miles out, their equipment begins to fail. GPS units lose signal, even when showing a clear satellite lock. Compasses spin wildly. Phone batteries drain in minutes. Some report hearing a low, subaudible hum that vibrates through the soles of their boots. A sound that causes intense nausea and a feeling of deep, irrational dread. Those who pushed further were met not by fences or walls, but by unmarked white vehicles that appeared silently on the horizon. The occupants, dressed in plain, unidentifiable uniforms, would simply state that the visitors were on private property and must turn back immediately. No threats were made. None were needed. The message was clear. The coordinates are a paradox, a location that is simultaneously empty and heavily guarded, a place where a facility was erased from the land, but whose presence still lingers like a phantom limb. The paper trail is a lie, the witnesses are gone, and the ground itself holds its secrets. We are left with nothing but an empty space on a map and the chilling certainty that something was there, something that required the most elaborate disappearing act in modern history. The question remains, was the facility destroyed, or was it simply moved?